tracks lead you out to the stars. Why can't you take the leaf off your mouth now that you have the facts on your side? Take a moment to reflect where we're going. Let reason guide you. See all tracks lead you out from the dark. See all tracks lead you out to the stars. Make that light lead you out. 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 Why can't you take the leaf off your mouth now that you have the facts on your side? Take a moment to reflect who we are. Let reason guide you. See all tracks lead you out from the dark. How the light feeds life. What makes up you and I? What it takes to thrive. What we need to survive. How we flourish and die. What it means to be alive. What it means to be alive. Make the light lead you out. 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 no instance in conscience or convenience. Even though you stand on heavy shoulders, I take the roundabout 'cause I like to see St. Jude again and again. Hands folded in prayer, God, do you write prescriptions? Goddamn, my signature's fake. I take the roundabout 'cause I like to see my house. Number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. Try the passenger door. Oh shit, man, it doesn't even work. And you've cried like you've never seen water. And come to think of it, I think my dad wanted a daughter. You can find me at the roundabout.
So welcome all. I'm very happy to open this day today. So I'm Philippe Cauvillier. This time I've chosen to be the moderator of the overall event, which makes me in a position, a very lazy position, because I've prepared all the stuff, and then I will sit at the back of the room and listen. And you will be working. This is very easy. So today we will be dealing with societal resilience. We have a very heavy agenda with 5 panels. It will be quite dense. So I will ask the moderator to try to stick as much as possible to the timing. And I will have the pleasure to introduce 2 people. The first one is Juha-Pekka from DG ECO, will be make the welcome address. Juha-Pekka, and then we will I will ask Yvonne Herrera to come as a moderator, and she will animate, in fact, the overall day. And if there are something to say or some questions, you know, I will be the one in the dark at the back of the stage. So thank you very much. I will, Juha-Pekka, the floor is yours. Thank you. You have slides? No?
Yes, I have slides. Let's see if I get them working. Yes, voila. Hello, dear all colleagues. Good morning. I thought Philip wanted us to talk, but apparently it was just because he's lazy, but that's okay with us too. My name is Juha-Pekka, JP usually, because it's a bit of a complex Finnish name, and I'll be giving a bit of setting the scene and giving you practical guidance from DG ECHO's viewpoint. So the main enemy of DG Home, the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operations Directorate, and mostly from our unit that's called Knowledge Network, which is very similar to Philip's unit in DG Home, but I'll try to catch up a bit on the time as well. Ta-da. I guess everybody in this room is very aware of the risk landscape, especially with disaster resilient societies, that the climate is happening to warm up a little bit. And this is, I guess many of you know this on the news or have seen it on other feeds, that the European, at least forecasts, noticed a somewhat disturbing anomaly on 17th November, that the surface air global temperature average exceeded 2 degrees Celsius on 17th of November. And if you, many of you can interpret the data over there, that it's been getting from yearly from more blue to more red. So compared to the pre-industrial temperature average being rising every year. So that data set goes only to 1940, so not that long, but still gives you a, merci Philippe, gives you a good idea of it. Let's not waste too much time over there. You might have also noticed that the summer of 2023 was a bit crazy, maybe to use one term. Here's just one example from DG ECHO's perspective on the responses that ECHO has done. So these are only international responses, not national responses only, and only in Europe and neighborhood. Okay, there's an example from Canada as well, but there were multiple extreme events throughout 2023. For example, the largest wildfire ever recorded on the European Forest Fire Information System. Okay, that record goes only to 2000, but still, again, another benchmark surpassed. And at the same time, the Canadian wildfires were according to their own records, the largest ever. But there was Storm Daniel in Libya that I think was even attributed to human-induced climate change and so on. But let's not delve here either too much, because I bet you're many aware of it. About ECHO's work on trying to close the science and policy gap. So I mentioned ECHO has a so-called knowledge network. And let's not bore you with too much strategic goals and bureaucratic documents, but our main idea, according to these, is to bring science and policymakers and practitioners closer, so that the results of science would be better used by, for example, the firemen you saw in the previous slides, or any other first response rescue services providers, which we support quite a lot on, or coordinate quite a lot on a European scale. Let's go. But here are actual examples of it. As I mentioned, very similar to Philip's unit at home. We run our own projects. Many of you might know it. This is these are the old names from a while back, but we run quite a lot of different projects. They are more action-oriented, so to speak, and more operational-oriented. They are quite a lot smaller than Horizon. They're like 1 million, and I think minimum partners is 3. And from here, I'll just point out that indicatively, our next funding call will open in 1st of February 2024. If you want to take something, write a note about it. But you'll have links or QR codes later on where you can find these. And other similar initiatives as the CERIS. So I forgot to mention that Knowledge Network is very young, maybe 2 years. I think tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, it will be only 2 years. So compared to Home's work, DG Home's work on CERIS, it's very new. But we run similar kind of activities for our constituents and users. Again, save the date for the European Civil Protection Forum for 4th and 5th of June next year. The biggest civil protection event in Europe, gathers around 1,000 people biannually, and that's the 8th edition, I think. Other similar events, like we have the Evidence for Policy in Disaster Risk Management, which I use the term force. Some people say encourage, but we put policymakers and scientists into the same room for two days, and they run master classes together and force them to encourage them to cooperate on different simulations and scenarios. And the arrow over there, that's the arrow going up. It's, let's say, the most exciting part of our current work, that we have been given a green light, and we have been very much encouraged by our leadership that we should utilize a lot more Horizon Europe projects and the results, and try to guide them more. So we have a working group with our member and participating states that has just been started, and it will, among others, along its goals, it will try to, or it will provide member states feedback and participants feedback that Horizon Europe Cluster 3, for example, will be better suited for them, and they will be more happier to uptake the feedback. It's not only future planning, but we have also asked them what kind of topics and projects at the moment interest them. So to create a better feedback loop and uptake intake loop on that. Here's some, now we start getting the more juicy part and more practical part. Here are some examples of how Horizon is already working very nicely with ECHO. So if you take examples of 4 Horizon projects, I won't name them. It's not name and shame, but I don't want to even put some at a higher position. But for example, if you take 4 Horizon projects, 2 of them continued from the Horizon findings and the knowledge into ECHO projects. And as I mentioned, ECHO projects are way more operational. It's usually even mandatory in the proposal that you involve the end users a lot more, and the results shouldn't be fundamental research. They should be very applicable. One project continued to a RescEU stockpiling grant. That might not say much to you, but RescEU is an actual operational grant. It's stockpiling CBRN, medical equipment, and so on, to be used in the emergencies and the response I noted in the previous slide. So that was I would say, the most operational example I've seen out of Horizon. And so it was a Horizon project, used their findings from issue and moved into an actual operational grant. And one more is, this happens naturally, informally all the time, but there's one that we have given a green light that we will directly support them and send their ideas or their initiatives straight to our national contact points. For example, for the surveys and calls and so on. But maybe to go why this happens, or it's not naturally doesn't come out of thin air, and naturally not every DRS project doesn't need to be ECHO suitable. It's I've very often come across projects that have targeted themselves very well, that we don't focus on international affairs or DG ECHO affairs or European affairs, that you focus only on, let's say, community level or national level response. So that's totally, naturally, very normal and okay, nothing to worry. But if there are projects who are interested in being better integrated with ECHO, these are just some voluntary tips that came across, that it usually is a little bit easier if you follow and learn at least a little bit of DG ECHO's policies. That it's a bit, if you ask, for example, ECHO policy officer, that would you be interested in that, and you don't know anything about what they're working on, it might be a bit of a feeling at that point. But for example, there are many projects that work on providing, or let's say like a health laboratory or something like that, that they are intending would be part of the pool. But if you don't know about the pool and its guidelines and standardization, it's going to be quite a difficult call for ECHO to give support or tips on it. So for example, European Civil Protection Pool, if you just Google that, you'll find it. And especially for this crowd or this day, there's the disaster resilience goals, totally public document again and published in February. But for example, there's a disaster resilience goal, I think number 1 is called anticipate, so risk assessment, risk foresight, and so on. And ECHO has its own disaster scenarios being built at the moment, which should be released next year, early next year, to my latest understanding. But again, if you, nobody's naturally forcing that to use Echo if it doesn't fit the project's objectives and so on. But if you reference Echo's policies, like some of our projects do, it's a little bit easier for Echo people to immediately understand what you're doing. And many of you might know that, or feel also that the wording is quite similar if it's Echo's policies or if it's your own framework and so on. But at least if you know about it a little bit, it's a better fit. A good entry point is, at least for some of your staff, would be there's a free e-course on EU Academy that's called Introduction to the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, which is a very good to get an overview of all Echo's policies and legislature and so on. So a bit more, way more practical stuff that we have been given a green light to, that we can support Horizon Europe projects from now on. If you take a picture of any slide, I suggest to take it from that one, because not all stuff will be online from there. But for example, we have there are lots of platforms, but the Knowledge Network has its own platform. And the difference being with our platform is that EU mandated. It's in EU law. It will stay there until someone takes away from the EU law. It has core staff around it. It doesn't have the same danger as many projects that after the funding goes, the website dies and poof. Previously, we've only had our own projects over there, but with a good cooperation with DG Home, we have agreed that also Horizon Europe projects can apply to have a project space over there. And you can autonomously then add events, upload deliverables, and so on. And that naturally is a lot easier for our staff than to monitor or follow or join your events, for example, if you would so wish. Maybe the slides, Philip, will be shared later, or you can find it on the platform and so on. The guidance to apply, and there will be a QR code, I think, in the next slide. There's a knowledge library being built, or it's ready at the moment in the platform, but they're testing it, so it should be available again next year. But similarly, you can, if it's an added value document, let's say a training material or risk assessment methodology or so on, you can also submit it over there. It gets a bit of a more credibility stamp to it when it's being approved by our librarians and shared over there. And naturally, we funnel all of our audience and all of our users to the platform too, that we don't necessarily go into different project websites and to funnel, and that this might be good. We use that mostly. You can create discussion groups over there. That's also a bit still under development, and there's more info on the platform itself. And we have also agreed with Home that if you have a need or interest in Echo's officers to support you or ask questions or have a meeting with them or to invite them to events, you are free to approach Echo, naturally via REA and DG Home, via your policy and project officers. But there's the functional mailbox, which is not anywhere else, which is why I said take a picture now if you want to, that you can approach us over there. And there's naturally never a guarantee that we can find something, because Echo is one of the smallest DGs, and we are, as you might have seen from the first slides, the officers are quite busy, but we will naturally be happy to try and assist if there would be an officer to support you on the issue, or relay your event to them if they would have availability to attend it. There's a QR code if somebody wants to use it. The best way to keep in touch with, naturally not everybody goes to our website all the time, best way to keep up to date on Echo's activities related to Horizon is to subscribe to that newsletter. And that was, I'll go back if someone still wants to take a QR code. That was my opening remarks. I hope I was a bit more practical. That's what our director has been wanting for now, that we first proposed that we would start aligning 2025, but I was like, no, we have to start taking projects immediately, or their results immediately into account. So hence why I had a chance to, or was greenlit a bit more practical presentation. But thank you, Philip, for inviting Echo, and I wish you a very nice day. And I'm looking forward to listening to the results. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pekka. I have 5 little points to say before I introduce Yvonne. The first one is that there will be no break this morning because we have a quite dense agenda. But feel free, there is coffee, drink, whatever outside in the lobby. Feel free to go, and it's like a cabaret style here. And so you just go out and you drink, take your coffees, and there is absolutely no problem with that. Second thing is that Pekka mentioned this capacity building, the program that will be open, the call that will be open in February. I would like to stress that this continuation between capacity building, research and capacity building is very, very strongly supported by DG Home. And here in this event, we have 4 projects funded by DG ECO that has a direct connection with Horizon Europe already. So we are trying to push synergies. Is something that in the future will have a very, very great value. Second thing, Pekka kindly mentioned the platform, which will be providing information on the ongoing project, and this will be in agreement with DG ECO open to Horizon Europe. As soon as there is a clear support to UCP, to the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. Please contact me if you are willing to do so, because it will be a very, very big windows for the project, policy-wise. It's a very nice opportunity, and as you have mentioned, it's also a matter of keeping the information on the long term because the platform is institutional, contrary to other database. Second thing, the UCP forum, 4th and 5th of June. It will be backed up with the last CERIS event that I will organize myself, because it will continue with my successor, but I will be leaving in early July. So you can expect a big party on the 7th of June, just for your information. But we will have the CERIS event on the 5th, 6th, and 7th, back-to-back to the UCP forum to enable projects to go and, for example, participate in the exhibition. So it will be a very, very strong synergy event. My next point is about DG ECO is making a study about disaster scenarios, and they will be making a compilation of different kind of scenarios. If you are working, and I know that many projects are working on scenarios on the basis of which tools, technologies are tested, or developing new scenarios, please contact me, because we will be very interested to get views from the research program to be conveyed to DG ECO. So don't hesitate to contact me. I will be very happy to relay. And my last thing is purely agenda matter. The poor Yarrow has his flight cancelled this evening, so we will need to swap panel 5 and panel 4. So the David, Michael, Michele, and Max, please be aware that your panel will be at 5:45 instead of 4:30. And while Gianluca, Jürgen, and Georgios, you know that you will be also be swapped. But please speak to your moderators; they are aware, and we will be making this smoothly. Yvonne, thank you very much for acting as moderator. We will be following your words carefully and cleverly, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Philippe. It's an honor to be moderating this day with all these clever people on board. And the day is for us, so I want to say that it's our responsibility to ask questions and interact, because everyone has a piece of knowledge. We are dealing with challenges that nobody knows everything. So security challenges are nowadays borderless, and they are very related also with international development, like no leave no one behind, and be very inclusive. So the evolution of resilience thinking has gone on the 20 years, has changed, and there is a lot of development. So this day, we have a lot of projects that have finalized. So we are very happy to learn what are the latest updates that we will learn from them. So all the DRS projects are using center, use co-creation, co-participation. And we are very close to Christmas and to have this day as a more inclusive. I asked some of my colleagues to we will have 3 wishes for the day. So I will ask first Jeanette Klonk. She is an NCP from Austria. What is your wish, Jeanette, for the day? Hold on. And as housekeeping, you need to talk close to the mic and 5 centimeters because people is listening from us from the ground. So, and then Sonia, and then Samantha. Yeah.
I don't think it works. Does it work? Ah, it works. Okay, I would wish, because it's close to Christmas, that during Christmas we will have a lot of snow. But at the same time, I would be more than happy if the infrastructures in Austria at least will work and that my kids can come to visit me over Christmas.
Okay, more close to the Christmas. Sonia, so we have new people also from Deep Blue, from Italy. So we have SMEs present too.
Yeah, hello everyone.
And Samantha.
My wish for today is to be inspired and learn more about the synergies between the different projects. And my wish for Christmas is to, there's snow also in Rome, but I know that's not possible. So, but well, it's a wish. So.
And then I will ask Samantha from INERIS. So. Yesterday, we have a panel with a lot of gender imbalance, so I'm trying to do a little bit of balance now.
Hello. So my wish is also for today to have a better understanding of the results of the different projects that will be presented today. And that's my main wish for today, and also for the rest of the meeting, to see the different interactions between all the different presentations of today, yesterday, and the coming days.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. And then I would like to invite our first panel. The first panel is dedicated to From Knowledge. We can put the first panel there. From Knowledge of Multi-Hazard Risk and Vulnerabilities to Responses. And then we have our colleague, Abdelmahai Meslem from NOSAR, that he will lead this panel. May I ask the panelists also to join, please? So, do you introduce your would you like to introduce the panelists?
For the panelists?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's there. So, yeah, sure.
So, to introduce the panelists too?
Yes.
I will let you know the time.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. I think by order.
Yeah.
Where is who's yeah. Oh, maybe she's coming online. Oh, right. Okay. Then
Then I'm on the second.
I forgot she's coming online.
This is camera for real.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Yeah. Here.
Hi. Good morning.
So I'm very pleased to moderate this first panel, interesting panel, titled From Knowledge of Multi-Hazard Risk and Vulnerability to Response. I have a guest or panelist from different disciplines and background, starting with Betsabi Haz. She's deputy mayor of French city of Tours since 2020, and she's in charge of risk management, environment health. Also, among others, she is elected at the committee of Bassin Loire Bretagne of the Water Agency of Loire and Brittany of the French National Council of Water. In her professional life, she's an opera singer. Yeah, this is interesting. Also, we have online Daniela Deposi. She's earthquake geologist, PhD in earth science.
She's currently working at the International Relation and Activity Unit of the Italian Civil Protection Department, expert in geohazard. More generally, in the relationship between the scientific community and policymaker in the field of disaster risk reduction and civil protection. The next is Femke. She's Senior Research Fellow at University College London. Her work focuses on involving community in the process of disaster management study, and she's currently working for the project Risk Park, looking at how citizens and authorities can work together to reduce risk. We have Professor Vlatko from North Macedonia. He's the director of the Institute of Earthquake Engineering and Engineering Seismology. He has been a representative of national coordinator of several European projects, coordinator of crisis ISRA, and here he will be presenting one of his interesting projects. And finally, we have Rui Pedrego, professor and doctor in physics, head of Meteosonic Institute of Complex System Science, and he's CEO of Synergisk Manifold. He's working on developing a new interdisciplinary technology for Earth and space system intelligence, synergy building among academia, research, and industry, and also working on multi-hazard awareness, education, and decision-making across multi-sectoral. Welcome all, and my name is Abdul Ghani Bislam. Where to go to the next slide? Back, yeah, okay. Yeah, my name is Abdul Ghani Bislam. I am a senior researcher at NOSA. I'm also associate professor at Norwegian University of Life Science. Welcome all. So we will quickly start with our panelists, give them between 5 to 10 minutes to present about their research activity within their project, as well as the challenges and all this experience that they have learned from their daily work. Welcome. So we'll start with Bisabi Has, please.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Philippe, for for inviting us in such an amazing place. It is really cabaret, and I'm sure it's going to help us think better together. I'm very happy to be here, feeling quite shy, of course, because I don't have your formal background. I'm just a policymaker, but I've been aware more and more that we have a lot of responsibility in making things happen or not. That if policymakers are not sensitive to the question of risks, things will not go fast enough. We're all aware that as policymakers, I want to bear witness here of the difficult link between the citizens and the formal institutional responses. When it comes to risks, policymakers feel at risk. They feel at risk of scaring people, of anticipating the worst, of creating defiance for their authority, since risk response is also about improvisation. As it has been said before, we never know how it's going to go. I mean, we can prepare as well as we can, but things will elude us. And to improvise well, you have to know your instrument. And as a musician, I can tell you that. So as a policymaker, we kind of shy away from risk management. There's also a very strong underestimation of climate change that looks more and more like a climate collapse. So the questions we're trying to address as policymakers is to sensibilize people, citizens, but also the civil servants. We very often forget about civil servants, but they are the ones, whether it's in the European community or in cities, they are the ones making things work. And if they are not convinced, well, things don't happen. I wanted to start with, am I going the wrong one? Yeah. So I'm going to go to this one first. This is, Tours is a city that is at high risk of flooding, like super high risk of flooding. We have the Loire and we have the Cher. We're in the middle, and we have loads of small rivers that are underground, meaning that when things rise, when water rises, everything is flooded. We have flooding levels everywhere in the city. Not everywhere, but in places that are important. This is the train station, the main train station. What I wanted to show you is that our formal response, this is the state formal response to aware people of possible risks. As you can see, unless you're really passionate about the subject, you will not see it. And that's really important because it shows you that there is a real problem in everyday's life of putting that risk into our everyday management of policymaking. The challenge has been to try to talk with the state as how can we change these repères de crue, and obviously it's very difficult because once you're in the formal way and all French cities have to have the same, you cannot change it. So the experience we had in Tours was to think that first, we need to think that there's as many solutions as there is, how can I say that, experience of risks. You've seen now in what's happened in northern France very recently. It's been a catastrophe. There was really a lot of damages. And it's not to say that policymakers didn't do their job. We do the PCS, we do everything that we're supposed to do. But it's very difficult to engage into a non-stressful work, sensibilization on risks. In a way, what is important for me here is that technology and science really have to be at the service of the many types of responses and interactions with human sciences, but also with culture, with sport, with the making of city, urbanism. It's also about going from knowledge to this ongoing interaction with inhabitants. And when I said ongoing, it means that it's something that has to be done regularly, and it's not a one-shot. It's also about inclusivity. In Tours, we have one of the poorest neighborhoods in France, one of the 12 poorest neighborhoods in France. It's called Sanitas. And so it means that we have to be able to, as scientists and policymakers, we have to be able to talk to everyone. Talk meaning have this interaction, and this is, I think, one of the big issue with sciences and politics. I wanted to talk about two things, so I will go back. This is an event that we did 2 years ago. We'll do another one in 2024. The idea was to talk about the Loire as something positive as well as a risk. The risk, of course, is because we're there. And that we have to remember that there is risks because there's humans. Because if there's no one, there's no risk. Water will go just take its place, and then that's it. It's also to say that the Loire has been a strength. Of course, it's a weakness because something, of flooding can happen, but it's been mostly a huge strength for the city. And I think we can say the same for any city that's on a big river. So the idea was to show this link, to show also this link with history, with patrimoine. And finally, we have an experience in Tours that I wanted to share with you. Wait, I will show you first. This is in front of the train station, same train station that I showed you. And we decided to paint the trees in blue, so people could really feel what it means to have 3 or 2.5 meters of water. Because of course, as I showed you, the little thing there is not very convincing. So I wanted to tell you about le Parlement de Loire, because I really believe that science and culture can work together. It is not just because I'm an opera singer, but because I think that here we are here, and it's also a cultural place, because I think that for science, culture and cultural events are a very good tool to make it easier for people to understand the issues. The Parlement de Loire is coming out of this will to include in inclusiveness, science and culture. We've had writers, we've had dancers and scientists, also urbanistic professionals, to work on the legal persona. It's a very strange thing, but legal persona of the Loire. It's happening now in Le Rhine and also Le Rhône. It has already happened in New Zealand. The idea is, like for a business, to give nature a legal persona with duties, but also with rights. And also with this idea that we are not next to each other. If you go to Tours, you'll be very surprised. You can't see the Loire. The Loire doesn't exist. The digues are so high that you cannot see the river. So the idea is to think, how do we collaborate? How do we cooperate with this huge river that is a risk for us, but is also a big chance? So this Parlement of Loire, I think you can have a look if you're interested on the internet on you can write Polo, P-O-L-A-U .fr, France, and you will see what's been done about this subject of, in a way, bringing together the risk, the people who are into culture, scientists, and the Loire as a persona. This is mostly what I wanted to tell you today. The other strong thing that I'm trying to work on as a policymaker is the democracy of risk. I mean, I call it the democracy of risk, meaning that when I told you that policymakers are very shy about risks and pushing it forward because it's going to scare people and everything, it's also that we have had the habit of pushing the idea that inhabitants have to follow the orders, and trust, finally trust scientists or trust policymakers that things will go right. And I think that's when I say democracy of risk, I mean that I think we could work also as scientists and policymakers on tools that could empower people and give them the chance to understand the issues and to also help us with the response. For now, it's very descendant. I know that a lot of people, like you were saying about in Turkey, are trying to work on ascendant responses and trying to find how people can themselves help finding the ways that's going to be more useful and more effective to touch maximum of people. And I think this is probably something that we really have to work on if we want to be efficient. I remember something that was said by another panelist. There's as many situations as there is solutions. And for that, we need collective intelligence. I mean, if we're all, in each of us are in their own specificity, it's going to be more difficult when the surprise, the risk surprise, will happen. So that's the end of my demonstration. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We go now to the next panelist, Daniela. So I will...
Here I am.
Yeah,
Can
okay.
you hear me?
Then I will just show your slides.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I will just help you to...
So I'm going to present the project of which I am the coordinator. That's called Roadmap 2. So Abdelghani, please help me.
Yeah, I'm trying to... Yeah, why is it? It's not working. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Wait a second. Yeah, I have to go back.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, okay.
Okay, here I am. Okay, so Roadmap is the acronym of European Observatory on Disaster Risk and Crisis Management Best Practices, way ahead because it's the second project. There was a previous roadmap and we are at Roadmap 2. Just to give you an overview of the project, is managed by 5 partners. The Italian Civil Protection Department is the coordinator. Then there is the Italian Center for Research on Risk Reduction. That is a consortium of competent centers that work in collaboration with the civil protection. And in this consortium, please go ahead, please. There are 3 partners, 3 affiliated entities, CIMA, EU Center, and Lewis. Next one, please. Then there is the University of Stavanger in Norway, the Association for the Development of Industrial Aerodynamics in Portugal, and the University of Tartu. There are different expertise, technical, sociological, political science in this partnership. Of course, there are many work packages, and most of all, please go ahead. We have 2 main objectives. We would like to establish a community for the European Observatory of Good Practices to improve the knowledge, understanding, and replicability of these good practices in disaster risk management. And the second one is knowledge building and sharing through a cycle of seminars, webinars, workshops, and so on, that are based on the good practices and their application in thematic multi-risk scenarios. So This project that has been funded by DG ECO within the Knowledge Network program of funds aims at create links between scientific community and decision makers through the sharing of knowledge and of good practices that are already there and can be shared and used by the different stakeholders. So moving to the next slide, I would like to focus on some keywords on the title of our panel. We have knowledge, we have multi-hazard risks, we have risk awareness. So just to find these words in our project, I will answer a few questions that are over there in the green panel. So the first question is how the multi-risk is addressed by the Roadmap 2 project, and this is done through the community of the European Observatory on Good Practices in Disaster Risk Management. So we have put together a group of experts. There are about 15 people. They come from different countries. They have different, bring different academic disciplines and practical fields because they are both decision makers and scientists. They are experts on topical matters such as disaster risk management, risks, civil protection, and all these kind of things, and work in international settings. And they have been selected because they are able to provide advice and suggestion, and they can help us in finding good practices that can be classified and shared. The second, please go ahead, thank you. Next slide. The second way we address the topic of multi-risk is through multi-hazard risk scenarios. We are preparing scenarios that are useful to find good practices that are in the entire risk cycle. You can see on the left that there is the risk cycle. The small gray hexagons are examples of where good practices could be found. They can be related to the phase of response and recovery. They can be linked to the phase of adaptation, mitigation, and prevention, or to the preparedness and anticipation. And they can be, you can see the four circles. The green, the smaller one is the local scale, then the national, the EU, and the international scale. Basing on this, we can use the building of scenarios to test some good practices that we have selected or recognized. And these scenarios are typically multi-hazard risk scenarios. For instance, we have a sequence of major earthquakes and aftershocks, and we consider the interaction among at the level of hazards. And good practices could relate to the retrofit for the buildings to reduce the earthquake damage. They can relate to the potentially impacted areas to dimension the response capacity. So in our response activities, we can consider the retrofit with sustainable materials toward a greener civil protection. Or for instance, you can have floods that trigger landslides, so a typical cascading effect, so a scenario with a cascade. In this case, we could look for and to test good practices to secure unstable slopes of the ground, or to alert population in case of increased risk due to heavy rains. So there are many different fields where good practices can be checked and tested on scenarios that are science-based scenarios. They can be qualitative in a way that's a kind of storytelling, and they can be quantitative. So we can have maps where the risk can be seen in the natural condition, let's say in the normal condition, how it is modified by the use of a good practice. Next slide, please. Moving to risk awareness, the second keyword, we have that this topic fits into our project activities through the knowledge building and sharing. So we are preparing and working on several pieces of activities, several different kind of activities which include collaborative workshops, test exercises, webinars, and flash reports. So collaborative workshops are very useful to discuss the input from scenarios on good practices in the knowledge network. Test exercises are very important. They are at local scale, so we are involving local decision makers and scientists to explore how the good practices can be applied successfully or not on local level. Webinars are, of course, carried out on topics that have been selected with the support of the community of experts that I presented before. And flash reports are documents that are written, so can be downloaded by our website, so they are available for all. Next slide, please. And how about the sharing? We imagine to do this work for the wide number of stakeholders that we have in this field of disaster risk management and the relationship between science and decision makers. So we have prepared an open source web platform that's called Solutions Explorer. We have been inspired by the GAPS Explorer of JRC in Disaster Management Knowledge Center. And this is a platform where the good practices in disaster risk management that we have selected, recognized, and classified are available, and they are at different governance level, local, regional, national, international. They'll deal with different topics. They are related also to the Sendai framework. And the platform allows to search and browse for good practices and solutions that can be needed by any of us in disaster risk management. So the platform is available at the link is now available to the project partners, to the stakeholders, to DG ECHO, to JRC, of course, and will be opened to the general public. We are preparing an updated version, but this is what you see, and there will be, there are many, many keywords that can be used to select good practice. So if any of you has an idea or needs to do something and want to see if in Europe or in other countries, someone has already addressed the same problem or the same question, you can try to select through the keywords if there is any good practices that can help you in this activity. And from my side, this is all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Yes, quickly, we jump to FEMCA, representative of RiskPack project. This is, basically, yeah, here is. So this is next, this is back.
Okay, brilliant.
But this is basically.
Great.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Let me just give you an overview of the RiskPack project. I'm new to the project, I've got some notes. So like a lot of projects, if not all projects that are here today, RiskPack aims to involve society in disaster risk reduction, and it really sees that as essential when it comes to education, risk education, raising risk awareness in society, and also early warning approaches. As everybody knows, there's a lot of capacity in society for disaster management. Regular people in their day-to-day lives do a lot for preparedness, for mitigation, and also during a response, like people might prevent forest fires by clearing dry leaves, they might prevent landslides by planting trees. When they learn first aid, they're part of preparedness. When they get insurance, they contribute to mitigation. And also, everybody knows when a disaster happens, it's the neighbors who are the first to respond. It's people checking vulnerable households on their street who are the first there. And if there is a major disaster, it's usually the local community who's there as the first port of call, and often they're the only port of call for quite a long time. And in addition to that, there are people in communities who are members of community groups who are actively involved in disaster risk reduction, like flood awareness groups and things like that. So there's a lot of capacity in society, and it's well understood now that the best way to respond to a disaster is to build on that capacity. And so ideally, authorities would work with the efforts of citizens rather than against it or alongside it, or in a way that doesn't help citizens at all. However, as has already been mentioned, unfortunately, disaster management is still often primarily done in a top-down way, with limited citizen engagement. Slides. That's basically what I'm saying. So what happens then if you don't have citizen engagement in things like risk reduction, in education, in early warning, is that you get education initiatives that don't really align with the way citizens understand risk. You get early warning approaches that don't align with people's needs. And the absolute core problem that exists when disasters are done in a top-down way is the fundamental issue that authorities and citizens often see risk in a fundamentally different way. Obviously, risk management authorities, they have their professional experience when it comes to managing disasters that they draw on. They're also relatively comfortable working with scientific hazard data. Citizens generally are not. Citizens obviously don't have professional experience. Most of them don't in managing disasters. They're generally not used to working with scientific hazard data. So you have this disconnect because risk perception risk awareness is shaped by people's lived experiences, by what they've learned throughout their life. And obviously you have that disconnect between citizens and authorities. So if you have no engagement, you end up with a situation where citizens do things that authorities don't expect, fundamentally because of this disconnect in how they see and understand risk. So like I think pretty much all projects that are here, RiskPack wants to find ways to engage citizens in disaster risk reduction, so as to make the fostering of risk awareness, risk education, and early warning more effective. And the focus is very much on co-creation methodologies involving citizens and authorities to have two-way communication between citizens and authorities to create relationships that involve citizens, civil protection, and community groups to jointly build like a broad and shared understanding of risk. And the point of that is to address the key problem that RiskPack focuses on, which is the risk perception action gap. Right, so this is the key focus of RiskPack. So what is the risk perception action gap? So as I already mentioned, authorities and citizens fundamentally see risk, understand risk in a different way. But related to that, there's also a fundamental difference in expectations between citizens and authorities in terms of what should be done and who should do what. So as I mentioned, authorities, they have their professional experience, they use scientific data. Citizens don't learn about risk in that way. They learn about risk through their lived experience. And so if you don't have a dialogue between citizens and authorities, you end up with approaches that don't fully fit people's lived experiences and needs. And then you get people who don't necessarily trust education initiatives. They might feel that they're patronizing. They might feel that they don't speak to their lived experience of risk. And they might not address what they fundamentally need from disaster management. And then you get, it's not just authorities who are surprised by the actions of citizens, it's citizens that are surprised by the actions of authorities because of this disconnect. Now, citizens learn about risk from direct experience, like they might be in disasters, they might personally experience a disaster, they might be in a disaster but not personally affected, so they have indirect experience. They also learn about it from other people, like vicarious experience, like they talk to people who've been in disaster situations, they see it on the media, they read about it on social media. But also very importantly, people's lived experience in general shapes how they understand and perceive risk. So when people have a negative, an adverse event in their life, not related to disasters, what they learn from that, they apply to how they understand risk and their perception of what they should do to address that risk. So that means that people's social identities, the social groups they belong to, heavily shape their perception of risk because you know, your social identities, and everybody's got multiple, like you might be a man, you might be older, you might be disabled, all at the same time. And all of that shapes your lived experience and therefore what you learn, and consequently what you learn about risk and your own perception about what you can do about it. Because a key factor that determines what people will do and if they will act is how vulnerable they perceive themselves to be. And that's not just a product of their social identity, it's also caused by whether there's economic turbulence in their area, whether their community is stable or if there's a lot of people moving in and out, if there's conflicts in their community, but fundamentally mostly whether people have access to resources, human connections, information and know what to do. There's also the environment itself that influences people's perception of risk, because obviously the environment shapes what hazards can occur and what impact they have. Importantly, also historical hazards that have happened in a local area and how authorities manage them heavily shape how people perceive risk and who should be doing what and what works and what doesn't work. So the fundamental points of risk that then is that if you want to manage risk, if you want to do risk education, if you want to do early warning, understanding risk is not just about the scientific facts and figures. It's about seeing the whole picture, not just the technical parts. And citizens have valuable insights to contribute, especially to education that is aimed at the public, especially to early warning that is aimed at the public. So RiskBack very much calls to bring together different sources of knowledge from scientists and citizens to inform education campaigns, early warning strategies, and bringing people together with authorities and having this dialogue will also help them to take actions that are more effective and help them respond to disasters themselves. So at the heart of RiskBack then is a framework for closing the gap, the risk perception action gap. So it consists of 4 modules that are all interconnected in no particular order. Absolutely vital is to build relationships between citizens and authorities, to have regular events, to have a structure in place for citizens and authorities to regularly meet, so that they can, through dialogue, understand the local risk context from both the citizens and the authorities' perspectives, to have this dialogue where they share, where the authorities and the citizens share their risk perceptions and share their expectations when it comes to risk. So not just broadcasting at citizens in one direction, but actually listening to them. And then based on that joint understanding, jointly build risk education and early warning approaches that are informed by this broad collective understanding. So in a nutshell, that's what RiskBack aims to do. There's a lot more to it, but that's the core of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Next panelist, Professor Vlatko. Yeah. So here is, okay, here is the next slide. This is back, but I hope you use this.
Okay. Thank you, Philip, first to give me opportunity to share some of our experience and ideas within these projects that we have several with the UCPM mechanism. I'm very glad to be here, and I will talk today about the second project, ISRA project, which is actually focusing on the cross-border cooperation. Okay. So actually, ISRA project is continuation of the previous one, crisis, which finished in 2022, 22nd, okay. And that one was for the risk assessment. And the next one, this one, ISRA, is regarding the cross-border collaboration on the risk awareness. So the project actually is for 5 partners. We have 4 research institutions: Institute of Earthquake Engineering and Engineering Seismology in North Macedonia, Aristotle University in Greece, Polytechnical University in Tirana, EU Centre Pavia, Italy, and because we are talking about risk awareness, and as researchers we are not so very well educated in the communication strategies, we have one institute for communication studies from Skopje, North Macedonia, which definitely help us in order to develop some of the communication skills that we are lacking. So yes, this is the slide, and you can see for which area we are focusing this project. It is a cross-border region between North Macedonia, Greece, and Albania. And we already assess what are the, let's say, main hazards that affect this area in the previous project. It is earthquakes and the landslides, which are very common in this region. And with that project, we actually assess how much we are exposed to the earthquakes and the landslides. And focus in that project was how our basic services, mainly hospitals, schools, and the infrastructure are vulnerable to these hazards. So after we assessed the risks, okay, we did it with the first responder agency, and we developed some tool which is very useful. And I heard also yesterday and today that okay, we can develop the application. Each of the project can develop application for, I don't know, for public awareness, for what kind of earthquakes can happen in this region. But after the project finish, the application is down. So we have so many experiences that after the funding ends, you are not eligible to continue with developing of such a separate application. So within these projects, we define that our main focus is how we can develop something which is already there existing in the first responders agency and how we can improve it. And after the project finished, that modulus or that application can be still ongoing and the first responder agency can work on. So we have very successful example in the previous project. So now the Center of Management of Crisis in North Macedonia actually is doing their web platform for risk assessment in the country based on the model that we developed within one of these European projects. So I think this is a good experience instead of each project developing application for its own. And as I mentioned, after project finish, you are not very eligible to continue funding that development of the application. So this is some of the positive experience that we are faced so far. So now this modulus actually is existing and it's under even upgrading in the national platform. So actually in the area we have plenty of good institutions who are dealing with the earthquakes, because earthquakes are very common natural phenomena in those areas. But one of the things that we are maybe lacking is that how to transfer all this accumulated knowledge that we have in this research institution to the real responders of the earthquakes, to the citizens that are affected by these events. So one of the main goals that we want to achieve is to have a clearly and accurately informed citizen, which we strongly think that is a first step toward the resilient society. So this cross-border region and our 3 countries share, let's say, a lot of common in the sense of tradition and culture. And you cannot apply universal methods or universal approach how you want to inform the citizens. So that's why first task was to make the assessment of the current situation. So this project is ongoing. This is on the halfway. It will last 12 months more. So actually we did a deep survey. We have a lot of questionnaires, and we have several target groups which we give them questionnaires to get a response. And what were the main idea behind this is that we have to figure out what are the preferable sources of information that the citizen want to be informed. Then we want to, of course, define the gaps and needs and the weakness of the system that is existing so far. And as I mentioned, we focus a lot on the tradition and culture and social background, because as you know, this region is pretty much heavy on the tradition and cultural background. So it is not so easy to convince the people how they should construct and build the buildings, because whenever you go to some villages or small towns, everybody will say, we know how to build the houses because my father and grandfather know how to build a house. And if the earthquake didn't happen in that area for 50 years, they will say, okay, my building is still standing. So this is just to give you an example that it's not always very easy to convince and to inform the citizen how they should protect, first of all, themselves. So based on this survey, based on this information that actually at this moment we are analyzing and gathering, we are planning to make a tailor-made solution which will be pretty much common for the area, not for one country, but actually we will take into consideration, as I mentioned, the specifics of each of the country. More or less, we share very much similar construction, building techniques of the, let's say, schools, hospitals, and as I mentioned, we have so much common in cultural and historical aspects. And of course, not just the presentation and lecturing and materials, but those people over there want to see us on the ground. So if you're just talking in the nice lecture rooms, they will go and they will forget many things. So one of our tasks in the next working packages and the next activities actually are these. Then we want to get out of our comfortable zone from our offices and go there. Go in this cross-border region and convince the people and show them the real examples how they should protect themselves in the case of hazards like earthquakes and landslides. And then, of course, as a last stage is that we want to quantify our efforts. Again, at the end of the project, we will perform again deep survey among those target groups in order to monitor each of these indicators. If we were successful, how much we were successful, and let's quantify the impact of the project. Of course, this is 2 years project. We are not expecting something tremendous that will change, but of course, after that, it will give us the idea how we will design the long-term measures. So these are some of the results that we have so far. As I mentioned, the project is 12 months only, and we left 12 months more. As I mentioned, we were focusing on the basic services target groups. So these are the health sector, high schools, teachers, and students, and of course the NGOs and the volunteers. So why health sector? Because we think that during the earthquakes, we have case studies from the previous event that the medical doctors, I'm speaking about those areas in our country, that are not very well informed how they should react and what they should do during the earthquake and immediately after the earthquake. As we know, the hospitals, the health center facilities, health sector facilities are one of the main points after the earthquake. So if they don't know how to react, then our system will collapse. The other issue is the schools. The schools and the teachers are one of the very important role in the disaster management, not just as a teachers, but also the schools as a buildings are one of the main evacuation point after the earthquake. So if there is a lot of damages, and in the most cases, the schools are the point where you should give the shelter for the homeless people that they lose their homes after the earthquake. So, and of course NGOs which are presenting the civil sector in the society. So one of the interesting information that we gather from this survey is what are the preferable source of information. So as you can see, these are for the cross-border region, for the 3 different countries. These are only the preliminary results, but it will give us the guidelines in which direction we should focus our, let's say, campaign for information after some period of time. So we think that in different countries, as you can see, even we share the same cultural and historical aspects, some of the people are trust to different type of sources. But definitely, internet space is one of the things that we should be focused, and also TV. And these are some of the points that we have to focus our campaign. But as I mentioned, those people over there want to see us in their villages, in their towns. So part of the activities will be definitely that we will go out and we will directly speak with the citizens close to their homes. So thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are running out of time. Okay, our slot time is already gone. Let's welcome Rio. He will be presenting about his project. Thank you.
So do I stay here? Or?
Yeah, you stay here. So this is for us.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation for the invitation from the organization to be here. Also to express appreciation for the Commission for having supported and currently still supporting the project that I will briefly talk about, and also our organization. Also say hi to all of you and also to the fellow panelists. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you. Regarding what brings us here, I see that we are much closer to each other, albeit all the different backgrounds, albeit all the different fields of activity, from fundamental science to applied science to technology to society to civil engagement to decision support and to actually acting on the fields. And to me personally, this means a lot, because I've been throughout my relatively short life. I've been not quite short, but over the last 25 years, I've been a bit in the very different parts of this engine that goes, from the fundamental mathematical physics, aerospace technologies, and so on, and it all the way down to companies, to building companies, to entrepreneurial science, to farming, to engaging citizens, and also to working with security forces that keep us all safe, and the ones that are usually feeling the most in the field when they are helping the people, and when anything goes wrong are usually the scapegoats. But I would like to express my appreciation for the great work that they do with the information that they've got. And our mission is here, from science to decision support and to policy making, is to enable these forces and their family to go back to their families safe, and to also fulfill their mission on the field, because they are the ones that materialize everything that we work for. We work for them. We work for the people on the fields to actually make things happen. And now, presenting a little bit the project, See to Impress. So the name of the project itself embodies the spirit that brings us all here together. Co-creative improved understanding and awareness of multi-hazard risks for disaster resilient society. So this is what all of us want here, all of us working together to that one. We are going to co-create here in CERIS. We are co-creating, we are thinking, we are doing. The first thing is to improve the understanding. It's not just about getting some data from some open vaults and running some models that are abound in the literature. It's understanding that no matter how much data we collect, how much computations we perform, And I've done many years of that, creating models that are used across the world in various different fields, especially climate system science, ecosystem science, earth system dynamic modeling. We've been working a lot on that, but that is never enough. No matter how much we say that the science is all done, and now we just have to act. No, the science is not done. The science is not done. Our science is still a baby, a toddler, crawling to understand what is going on. So we need to improve the understanding. We need to improve the science from the very first core, from the roots. The roots are not done yet. And that's what we are going to do and what we are already doing in the project. So improving the understanding, to improve the awareness, to inform the citizens, to inform the authorities, to get things going, we need to get the science right in the first place. And currently, it's not quite right. It's a bit shaky. So we need to improve the models. We need to improve the data sets, creating a new knowledge database, new knowledge systems, something that does not only entail our technological side, but also the human side and also the love. We need to be loving into this situation, so being in the field, feeling it. I have a farm as well. I've felt the fires, I've felt the floods. We have to have that empathy, not just looking at some data and some plots and looking at numbers. And being a physicist myself that works with numbers, moving from numbers to functions, and from functions to distributions, and from distributions to the people, to our planet. So awareness. Awareness that entails taking that knowledge that we acquire, that information that we sense through the system dynamic modeling, through the system engagement, the big data analytics, through all the social media analytics as well, the natural talking to the people on the field, not just the citizen in the big city, but also in the villages, sensing that information. So it is very important to do that, and we have been doing that. The multi-hazard risk intelligence networks are all about that, monitoring the hazards, talking to the citizens, engaging them, and then also engaging into not just top-down governance structures, but bottom-up. And this brings me to the next slides, which entails a coevolution between top-down governance, where you have the generic laws of system dynamics, where you have the general principles, the thermodynamics, the fluid mechanics, the general principles that govern how our planet functions, but then also the specificities of each place, of each hazard, and most importantly, how the hazards act together, not just as a linear cascade, one after the other, but also with the notion that there are synergies, multi-hazard synergies, meaning that the whole multi-hazard picture is more than the sum of the parts. It's even more than the multiplication of the parts. So you have fires, you have floods, you have earthquakes. All of that can be connected, and also geopolitical issues. All of that needs to be quantified in a way that takes into account not only the metrics from the data and from the models that we develop, but also from the thinking, the sensing that comes from, so we have a constellation of satellites from the company that I created, but also not just looking at the planet, taking the quantum gravitational pulse of the planet as we do, with this thing on the right. So these are quantum gravitational sensors that are in space. We take the pulse of the planet, the geopotential height fields, we see geophysical disturbances emerging before the weather models take them, before the earthquake models take them. So it's very important, but not only that. We need to use the citizen sensors to gauge the people, to talk to them, to listen to them, to survey, as the colleagues also have said repeatedly. Socio-physical sensors and processors. So sensing, so that we do what? We go into the engine and we make sense of it. We make sense of it. And then to make sense of it, we have the technology that captures the information. We have the social technology that talks to the people, that interviews the people. But we also need to have, as we are building, a system of systems for multi-hazard risk intelligence networks. An intelligence system that is not just AI, which is just statistics and pattern recognition, but going beyond what is on the data, going beyond what already happened. I'm going to finish. Going beyond what already happened, going beyond what has been recurringly happening, going beyond recurrence networks, beyond machine learning, and also having the Earth system dynamic intelligence, which is the way where people, ecosystems, life, and also technology co-work together to organize, analyze, communicate, understand, adapt, co-create, deduce. So all of this involves scientists, engineers, practitioners, policymakers, citizens, farmers, all sitting together to co-create, to co-participate into building the bottom-up synergy that will create for each case study their specificities, but then having the governance, which will then come down and help everybody else. And then we can simulate situations like the bottom right is a situation that has been simulated with Earth's dynamic intelligence. It's very realistic, but the dynamics take into account also what we say. To finish up, the last 30 seconds, here it's a demonstration of how the predictability to look beyond to see emerging hazards, for instance, in this case, precipitation of a long term, precipitation extremes, with classical information technologies, machine learning, artificial intelligence, you see just the recurring precipitation. So predictability is high where you have moist climates. But when we come together, and then we have the collective intelligence of people, technology, and overall science and society together in the sociophysics, we have been able to increase the predictability of extreme rainfall with long lead times to save lives. This is what we are here for, to save lives. And the technology has been running into these things, equipments, quantum computing is already a reality, and space sensing. So at my company, we have been developing, it's a spin-off company from my institute, we have been developing these technologies to assist, but then through the project, through the citizens, through the colleagues, through all of you, we co-create solutions bottom up so that the top down can be better informed to educate with new information that science needs to get. It's not just the decision maker that needs to learn from science, that science needs to give to the policymaker. The scientist needs to learn as well from the society. Our science also has to listen to society, and this is what we are doing here. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much all for sharing your experience and the information about your project. I'm sorry to inform you that we will not have time for the questions. We already spent more than what was allocated for us time. Thank you again, and yeah, we go to the next panel. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your flexibility. We started the last panel 10 minutes in delay, so that we are a little bit 10 minutes behind. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ivonne Herrera. I work at Antennu Social Research. I also have a Resilience Engineering Association that is a global NGO, so people can join. Our next panel is Connected Multi-Hazard Risk and Vulnerabilities to Responses, and it will be led by Keith Jones. So we know Keith from previous events. I will ask the panelists to join Keith. And I will ask everyone to try to keep short, to have some time to discussion, so we can learn from we have a lot of information from the last panel, but we'll do a little summary after this panel. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Whilst the panel convenes, CES, we are short of a panel member, I think. I know he's here because I was talking to him earlier. Is CES around? Okay, all right, well. So welcome. This panel is connecting multi-hazard and compounding risk initiatives. So I'm Keith Jones. I'm not going to say very much except to ask the panel members, please keep it to 5 to 10 minutes. Otherwise, there is no time for questions. I'll let you introduce yourselves, and that will also hopefully, Cess, good. We'll also save time. So the plan is that each member will present 4 slides, giving a very high-level view of their work. Then we have 3 questions that we will address, and then we will open to the audience, hopefully, if time permits. So, Cess, I'm going to hand over to you. I think you're first up.
Yes. Sorry, I thought there was still a discussion coming, but... Right, so we are going the other way around. Right. Yeah, so I'm Kees van Wester. I'm from the University of Twente. I'm a physical geographer by background, and I'm coordinating the project Paratus. Within this forum, we're going to, within this panel, we're going to discuss three major questions. One dealing with complexity of systemic risk, the other one relating to stakeholders and the problems of involving them, and the third one is how can we bring our, developments further than Europe, collaborate internationally. So I want to reflect a bit in my presentation on these three different aspects. So starting with the agenda of compounding risk events, I did a Google search. Of course, we do the deliverables, and we have to say what has been done before. We could say, well, a disaster risk and compounding events are high on the agenda, but they have been already for quite some time. So may I here show a number of examples of projects that worked on the same topic over the past 2 decades or so. I guess a number of you were involved in those projects. And, well, every time we kind of tackle the problem again. One of the issues I think we need to discuss is how do we bring that a level further? And this is also, I guess, for anybody involved in these projects, always the struggle. Even now in this meeting, I hear a number of acronyms I never heard before, and I guess it's the same for you. So what we're trying to do is we try, at least within a bubble of projects, to collaborate a bit more and see if we can create synergies with projects that are either on the same call or that are on related topics to ours. So in our case, we identified a number of them like Mediate, Myriad, C2 Impress, and HUD. And I'm happy that from all of these projects, there's somebody available here so that we can also use the time during this day to further interact and maybe do that later as well. So we also have a large number of tools that have been developed, and I think also earlier speakers mentioned as well. A lot of projects produce tools, and how long are they operational? I think one of the number of these tools are operational. They are also related to international collaborations. Some are kind of ending at the end of the project phase, but the aim is to develop open source solutions on which others could build up eventually. So coming to that, to the topic of, say, complex and in systemic risk, I think that's also a very important component within many of the projects that we're dealing with. We're looking at compounding events, so events that worsen the impacts, say, on each other, on the society, but they are caused by different interactions of hazards, both in space and time, but also the interactions of the impacts. And I think trying to unravel that is quite a big challenge. So one of the challenges that we see is together with stakeholders kind of unravel what happened in past events and trying to standardize, formalize that in a way which we call impact chains, and that we describe those in a way that, well, no end user would be happy to see these, what we call spaghetti monsters. But we want to present them then in such a way to end users that they are able to, say, query them in a relevant manner and say, obtain the information that is relevant for them, for their sector, for their component, and then being able to say, what could we do to address them? So where is the impact part, where the risk management part coming? So this is one of the key aspects within our project. We're told not to talk too much about our project, so just one or two components. It's a project that, unfortunately, I would say we are also developing an online user-centered platform, but so is Mediate, and so are several others. We're talking about co-creation, stakeholder involvement, cross-border applications, so you know all the main buzzwords are there. We have some of the key stakeholders as partners, and I think one of the key ones for us is the Red Crescent Society, with whom we work closely together in a number of case study areas, also outside of Europe. Say one of the areas is the Caribbean, and where we're looking at, say, interacting hazards and cascading events. So we develop a framework by looking back in time, develop kind of a database on how we can store multi-hazard impacts. And we do that also collaboration with other projects. Later on, Nicole will say something about the ESA project that we're both involved in. We also develop data sets for that with DLR, with AI-based EO data. We bring that together in a platform that would be a series of tools that end users can take parts of those out, modify that to their own needs. So this is not going to be a system that would serve all purposes. It's basically a collection of tools that we aim to do, and that has a component which is kind of static and provides information, and that's where I hope we could provide a lot of linkages with the other projects present here, and a kind of simulation part where stakeholders can initiate their own scenarios within their projects. So the tool has already a number of components, and we aim to launch the initial version in May. We're still only 1 year ahead, so the real version will be a few years later. Then how could we create more synergies between the different projects is through a number of different things. We organize summer schools, for example, for young researchers within the different projects, and we invite also the other projects to be part of that. So so that we have more interaction between the different groups. Other option is to actually do joint lunch seminars. So within our project, we had every week lunch seminar by another expert, and we can also do that together with other projects so that we share the knowledge just a bit more in depth than we do here. We do joint sessions in international conferences. Here are some examples of conferences that were just done, like the NEEDS conference, which was just a month ago, and several conferences planned in the coming year, where we hope to collaborate and organize joint sessions with other projects. Then the other option would be to have joint stakeholder hubs. So within our project, we collaborate with the CMINE platform, coordinated by RAN, and where we have also a DRS societal resilience cluster where we already collaborate with a number of projects. We invite also others to be part of that so that we could, on a regular basis, communicate on the different activities that we do, and maybe also that we would share a joint stakeholder hub. Linking to other other initiatives. We have a link to DG ECHO project, also in relation to PPRD Mediterranean, where we develop, say, these rapid flood modeling and flood damage assessment tools. We have a link with other countries, for example, here in Pakistan, where we support national government with their multi-hazard risk framework, as we do in several other areas. And just a third example here is with the Green Climate Fund and the UN United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, where we do capacity building for national stakeholders in 9 island states around Africa. So these were just some examples, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping to time. So, Abdel, your 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm back again. Yeah, thank you very much. I think now it's mine. So yeah, I have already introduced myself. I will just jump to the next slides. So I'm the coordinator of MEDIATE project, a multi-hazard and resilience informed system for enhanced local and regional disaster risk management. So in our project, and I'm sure that this is the case of most of all DRS projects, we are working toward enhancing societal resilience against multiple interacting natural hazard and impact. All these projects are addressing this issue using different perspectives and different approaches. But we all have the same goal, which is about to identify the gaps and address a challenge in the level of preparedness of societies and also management of the disaster. So we are working to understand decision makers' needs for them to help them to implement successful or efficient risk mitigation strategy. So we are working to find out how we can improve risk resilience systems that are currently working or oriented toward a single hazard approach with different risks being addressed by separate and different governmental agencies. So this is where we can see that risk analysis are always performed or are not performed from a multidisciplinary perspective, but where they can integrate all the impact in terms of physical impact, economical impact, and social impact in the overall analysis and approach. And of course, this leads to the fact that risk assessment is always consider, and currently it's also always the case, they consider the exposure and vulnerability as static, which contribute to misleading risk evaluation. We have engaged partners from different background, different discipline, but also we have a stakeholder that represent different geographical and demographical, cultural and geopolitical conditions working together, and also try to get them involved as active and being proactive in communicating risk results and outcomes to them, keeping them always updated. So we had actors from different, from various type of stakeholders. We had from disaster management authorities, emergency agencies, policymakers, critical infrastructure operators, business organizations who are helping us to understand the needs and try to improve and go beyond the state of the art. So one of the biggest challenge, this I'm sure that this is also the case for most of the project, is the fact that we have different disciplines, and then there is a lack of mechanisms for communication and collaboration and cooperations. This is something that has been identified at a different level, and we have been working quite. We have given a huge importance to this part in order to improve this issue and then come up with a clear definition and common understanding of disaster risk resilience between the different technical agencies and different actors in disaster risk management. So this is basically a huge step toward coming or helping in developing a policy recommendation that will definitely strengthen community preparedness and also improve disaster resilience. CERIS has already mentioned our activity at different partners, but also at EU level in order to spread and also make the result more visible at every part of Europe. So we are part of interesting clusters that we are sharing information, but also there is a discussion also to interact with other clusters or other initiatives. And I'm sure that later it will be mentioned in one of the panel that will be described in more details, but also toward the partners that are involved in the project, who are involved, who have also their international relation and collaborations, where they are using the outcome of the projects in other activities through their national research councils. Like, for example, in our case in Norway, the government has been quite generous in funding a lot of activity to promote the outcomes of the EU project, and then we have been using them in other regions, in Central Asia, in Africa, also in America Latin, where they have different type of the hazards, and we try to create kind of synergies, cross-continent synergy with those partners. But also there are other opportunities that we are using. For example, the UNESCO Chair platform. It's one of the huge platform where there is a lot of interaction between between academia from different backgrounds, where we will be presenting the different outcomes of our project. So yeah, I tried to be very short, less than 5 minutes maybe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdel. Yes, it was 6 minutes, but never mind, I'll give you that. So, Yaslav, your 10 minutes. And 5 if you can.
Yeah, thank you very much, Keith. Thank you for the opportunity. Which way? No.
Other way. There.
Yeah. I'm completely lost here.
Completely to the end.
Yes. So can you help me? Yeah. So in the meantime, let me introduce myself. My name is Yara Muziak, and I'm Research Director at the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. I will be talking about the CLIMAX project, and I will be focusing more on the opportunities rather than on what we're doing. And the next one is with this one.
The big one.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have been working on a number of research and understand the interface what the regions or public authorities really need. For this purpose, what we have seen is European Commission established a mission adaptation. Mission adaptation is one of the 5 missions that are dealing with overarching societal challenges. They are very important. As a difference to the traditional project, the mission-related project work as a portfolio of many projects helping the regional authorities to make a tangible advancement. So there is roughly about 30, 40 projects that really needs to work closely with the public authorities to deliver. The central element, horizontal services, are projects that are serving all those regions, and there are different objectives how to do that. Now, the CLIMAX project is developing a better understanding of climate risk at the regional level. And this is building up on what has been done, what has been mentioned, that is enriching the existing methodologies and tools in order to assess the risk management capabilities of the regions, what the regions can do within their territories, what they should prioritize as the intervention. So CLIMAX is developing the framework for regional climate risk assessment that is compatible with the national risk assessment and national climate risk assessment, and creates also a bridge between what is being done at the local and regional level and what we know about the risk at the national level. The framework is closely coordinated with what is being prepared as the new mapping guidance for the national risk assessment, as well as for the climate risk assessment, and feed into the European assessment like UCRA, European Climate Risk Assessment. The second thing what we're doing is we are developing toolbox, but many of you are developing toolboxes. This is not something that we come up with as something new. This is providing the regional authorities with tangible means to assess, explore the risk they're facing. Now, this toolbox is open-ended. That means this toolbox is open to all your tools, methodologies that are mature enough for the regional administrations to look into. There is one more incentive in that. The project is managing cascading funds, and there is something about 12 million. The 12 million will be distributed among 50 regions or cities in Europe in order to use those tools and improve their understanding of climate risk. Right? So CLIMAX is not monopolizing this toolbox. It's opening up the opportunity for your project to plug in your methods, your tools, making it compatible with what the regions need, and then you might be contracted by the regions themselves in order to execute the assessment at the regional level. So there is, together with ECMWF and Copernicus Climate Change Service, we are developing an interface that will harness the existing data, open up to your tools so that might be plugged in, and used at the regional level for the scope of advancing a good, profound understanding of cascading risk. The open call will be, it's already published. It's meant for the regional administration that might get up to 300,000 euros to be deployed with you or with other suppliers to explore the risk at the regional level according to the standard and coherent methodology, and providing added value to the European understanding of climate risk. So this is it. This is the core. So the key take-home messages are the regions and municipalities really need to explore the risk management capabilities, what they need to reinforce in order to, it's not only understanding of risk, understanding what is the gap in risk management capabilities. The second, they are keen on deploying your tools, and you might do that via the specific cascading grant that the regional authorities will receive. And this is quite substantial. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Jaroslav. So Nicole, your 5 minutes.
Hi, thanks everyone. So my name is Nicole van Manen and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. And I will, first of all, thanks for having me, and also thanks for the great preceding speakers. They already set the scene, so I will try to keep it short. So I would like to talk a little bit about the importance of looking at multi-hazard risk assessment and why we need to break the silos. So while we are aware that in reality disasters and risk and also hazards never really happen in isolation, the majority of natural hazard research still focuses on single hazards. So we will be either looking at a drought or a flood or a wildfire, but in isolation, and this sometimes makes sense, especially when we're trying to understand the hazard by and in itself. Yet when we are trying to assess risk, and particularly disaster risk, it's also important that we understand the interactions between the multiple hazards and the underlying exposure and vulnerability and how those change over time and space. So also in the context of climate change, we see that risk can arise from the dynamic interactions among climate-related hazards, as the IPCC has rightly pointed out this year. And additionally, if we ignore components such as time dependency, this can lead to an underestimation of the frequency and compound impacts of severe events. Especially when we think about how increasingly interconnected our world is and where natural hazards and their impacts are spreading across geographical, administrative, and sectoral boundaries. So we should make sure that risk is not being departmentalized, although this is probably easier said than done, and as has been pointed out by many, the research community has not yet provided these interdisciplinary modeling tools that would be required to really quantify such complex cascades. So I want to just quickly touch upon two of the projects that I'm involved in. So the first one is the Myriad project that focuses on managing risk together, and the second one is the ESA-funded EO for Multi-Hazards project that is thinking about how we can use Earth observation information better in the context of multi-hazard risk assessment. So in Myriad, we are trying to move towards a multi-risk, multi-sector systemic approach to risk assessment and management that can really help develop forward-looking disaster risk management pathways for policymakers, decision makers, and practitioners to help them assess the trade-offs and synergies across sectors, hazards, and scales. And there, as you can see on the map, we are looking at these so-called pilot regions that cover quite a wide range of different sectors, but also different hazards. And so the question that we are really trying to answer in this project is how can risk be better managed by considering all the many interrelated effects. And lastly, I would like to quickly introduce this new ESA-funded project that started very recently called EO for Multi-Hazards, and this project really aims to advance the fundamental scientific understanding of high-impact multi-hazard events by exploring and exploiting the huge potential of the latest advances in satellite Earth observation technologies to better identify, characterize, and assess their associated risk, vulnerability, and impacts on society and ecosystems. Because, as we all know, Earth observation satellites provide a lot of data and products that can be used to monitor physical processes in hazard-prone areas because they capture very timely and large-scale environmental data over a range of different resolutions, which, if combined with socioeconomic data, can give us quite unique insights into assessing risk. And this is also particularly important in regions where there's insufficient information available from measurements on the ground. So, for example, least developed countries or places where we cannot access due to, for example, political conflicts. So the goal of this project is also that there's a clear practical application that really enhances the benefits for citizens. And I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to thank the panel for keeping to time. You may have realized that each of the panel members, as they were talking about their projects, were trying to address three specific questions that I posed them last week when we were putting this together. One was primarily research-based, so systemic risk. We're all told in our area now that we've got to move away from a narrow view of risk to a view of systemic risk, which fits in with this concept of wicked problems. The second was more practical, about how when we move into this systemic risk and we're trying to look at how hazards and impacts cross system boundaries, both discipline systems, but also human systems, so different organizations, different perspectives, how that changes. And then the third one, which is where we're all trying to get to, is how do we use this then to try to generate outputs that actually make a difference in the real world? So thank you for that. Could you use the microphones now? Thank you. So I'm going to throw it back. Those are the three questions that I set you. Would anybody like to add anything to what they have said, or to start a discussion, which I will invite the audience also to participate with, around those issues? Who wants to go first on systemic risk?
Yeah, well, we can
go on. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much. So there are a number of ways how to look at the systemic risk. In another project that recently concluded, we address what was identified as the gap in climate adaptation strategy back in 2013, understanding the remote climate risk and how they might propagate and affect European resilience. So in this project, we have followed a storyline approach, which is closely connected to the impact chain that CERIS was mentioning, but adding also something like counterfactual, how certain event might have evolved differently or under different conditions, how they might have created larger impact or tested the risk management capabilities from different angle. And I think the storyline approach is very interesting under the shift in risk assessment towards assessing resilience towards multiple protracted or permanent crises.
Yeah. It does it? Well, yeah, it works. Yeah, I think this is a very complex topic that would be try to shy away from, but we put it in it was in the call text and therefore also in our proposal and in many of the others. It's the risk that threatens the system as such, and it is very hard to predict. I mean, imagine how many people were able to predict COVID-19 and the effects of that, just as an example. So I think the best way is actually looking back with stakeholders at what happened before and really trying to unravel what happened, and then trying to imagine what could happen if situations were different. And so that needs a tool to actually draw up these pathways or storylines or impact chains in a way that it's also manageable. And I think some of the tools that are available from past events, like post-disaster needs assessment reports, help you to figure out what was this complex interaction. What is actually still a big issue is how do we keep track of those events? So we have disaster databases, but like our international EM.dot database just has a number of people affected or economic losses, but doesn't address any of those interactions or cascading events. Unless we are really developing these in a better way, we don't learn from that. So I think that's also a key issue, actually, to collaborate in making better disaster databases that incorporate the systemic component in it.
Nicole, I think. Oh no, Abdel.
Yeah, I just want to say that addressing systemic risk, we have to be clear that it means that we are accepting a great degree of uncertainty in risk management. And this itself, it's a little bit complex. So in Mediate, we are addressing this, but with the perspective of cascading impact. We have selected a test bed where we use a background of historical events, and also we use a storytelling in order to help the stakeholders to understand the complexity of the system. Of course, not go into the multi-system or ecosystem, but just one element of systemic risk, which is cascading risk. To make it much easier for the stakeholders and the partners to try to come up with a very clear pathway on different aspects or different steps of this issue. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe just a short addition to the great comments already made. So I think also moving slowly to the second question, maybe it's very important to think about how we can communicate these complexities in a way that it's really useful for the stakeholder in the end. So what we are doing in Myriad is really working from the very beginning with the stakeholders to ensure that there is also a real-world application of our findings. And I think that is what we should also really keep in mind, that it's easily accessible and understandable for them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Abdel, I'm going to come back to you because you mentioned complexity. And you can frame systemic risk in a wicked problem perspective. You can look at it at conflicting knowledge, uncomfortable truths, which I hope most of us would see this is where disaster risk sits. But then if you accept that, surely you all also have to accept that you need clumsy solutions. And so there is no one solution that we're going to find. It's a matter of a solution space. So given that we're all striving for real world impact, how do you square this idea of systemic risk and a wicked problem with the potential conflict that you're going to end up with something which is a partial solution or a clumsy solution? So you mentioned it, so I'm going to pass to you first, but the rest of you will also have your chance to answer that one.
This is quite a very difficult question. Well, this is what we have been trying to work on. But as I said, we are only focusing for now, starting only with the cascading instead of going the whole complexity of the system. So, yeah, it will be. It's a very, very difficult question.
I don't ask easy questions.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to come into that? It is a difficult question, and I don't think any of us has an answer. I apologize for putting you on the spot first, Abdel.
If you want, I can take it. Yeah. I don't have a unique answer. I can share the experience. But let me start with, you mentioned wicked problems, and wicked problems emerged something like in the 60s, where all the policy questions seemed to be quite linear and easy, and some of those were difficult. Nowadays, most of the questions are difficult and wicked, and only few are linear, easy to solve. So I think the only way how to really pass the idea to the stakeholder, to the policymakers, it's to work with them, increase their agency, increase the range, what they can do with the research and innovation that we are producing, increasing the decision space, exploring what might happen. Science will not determine the policy action, but it might inform those actions and might identify new solutions to otherwise very intractable problems.
Thank you. Cess?
Yeah, sure. I think clumsy solutions are always, we are trying to unravel very complex and wicked problems and then come up with some answers to some of those components. I think also when you're looking at these complex impact chains, you might be able to address some of those components and say, what if you would interact within that section of the complexity, how would it improve the situation? But at least already quantifying what would be an indirect impact is already very complicated. So let alone under changing conditions and then with comparing different alternatives. So it is always a partial solution, I would say.
Okay, thank you. So I believe there was a gentleman at the side who wants to, and then a gentleman at the back.
I don't often get described as a gentleman at the side, but thank you, Keith. Thank you very much. My name's John Hall. I'm from RAN and from CMIND. So firstly, thank you very much for the panellists that have described the clustering work that's going on and the way that all of you are starting to work increasingly with other projects. For CMIND, we also have the enviable task of stakeholder management in Paratus, and Kay's described a dream of creating a stakeholder hub for all DRS projects, so that everybody's got this massive gang of stakeholders that it can turn to. That is a dream, a long way off, but we're moving slowly. But as the manager of the stakeholder side, we're increasingly getting a bit bogged down with something that got discussed yesterday, which is the people often responsible for disaster resolution are actually political people. It's the local authorities that carry the statutory duty for the resolution of disasters. And very often it's those same politicians that carry the statutory duty for planning and prevention. And yet the stakeholder group we're least able to engage with at the moment is the political environment, the local authorities, the citizens, because the citizens vote for them. So you have kind of got representative bodies for the citizens. They're called politicians. We all love them, don't we? So I just wonder whether the panel are recognising the fact that when they describe stakeholders, they're describing their own little bubble of who they think a stakeholder is, when in reality there is probably a stakeholder group that's umpteen times bigger that we're having little or no correspondence with at the moment. So
Okay, I'll pass that to the panel.
Whether we know who the stakeholders are. I think this is, I think also one of the major issues within all the projects that we are involved with is we think we know what the stakeholder needs are, but we first define them in our proposals, and then we're going to investigate the stakeholder needs. But we already wrote our proposal, so they better stick to what we wrote, because otherwise we can't meet our needs, and they might want something completely different, but yeah, sorry, we have to stick to our proposals. And I think this is a major flaw in how the system works. Unless the proposals are written by stakeholders entirely, and we address them. And I think we heard one example earlier of a good example saying, okay, we address tools that you already work with, and then we adapt them. That might be a solution. But otherwise, I think you should start really from the stakeholders' point of view.
So Adele.
Yeah, actually, it all starts to understand first what are the systems or tools that the stakeholders are using in order for us to better define who are they or where our solution would fit in. So yeah, sometimes we have to list stakeholder, but yeah, during the project we have to shift and look for other kind of stakeholders that may help us to address an expected issue or challenge that we have to deal with. Yeah.
And if I understand the mediate stakeholder model correctly, you're using a sort of snowballing approach. So you're starting with primary level stakeholders who are then introducing you to secondary level and third level stakeholders that they think are the most important to work with in exploring the storylines. Is that true?
There is this kind of link and connections that we use in mediate in order to, as I said, so during the project we'll come up with an expected outcomes that or an expected kind of input that we need, and then we will have to count on our selected stakeholder to go to other categories. So yeah.
Thank you.
So I have sensed that in your question is also the political commitment, right? I mean, in changing the priorities of the policy and this is really challenging. We have a number of projects where previous administration had a very ambitious and bold goals, and then they lost the election, and the new administration has not shared the same level of ambition. I think the only way is really to build a political consciousness and awareness and commitment to transformation, broader societal transformation. So there's no recipe how to keep that commitment, and we have seen that also from UNFCCC negotiation, but this is the only way to do. I think the mission adaptation is an interesting example because the regions, the political commitment is part of the research and innovation endeavor.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, I guess that to engage a broad range of stakeholders, it's also very important to communicate from the very beginning what they can gain from being a stakeholder so that they are committed and willing to participate also over longer periods of time and not only the four years that such a project lasts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There was a gentleman at the back and then a lady at the front.
Yeah, my name is Horst Kremers from Berlin. I apologize for being late for this session, but that is why I sit in the back. Normally I sit a few tables more in front, so it's similar to the colleague. So what I wanted to give a little bit comment is a question of complexity. How to handle, we all have only question marks, at least this morning. Some people try to eliminate the question marks and give answers. Nevertheless, it's more easy if you have complexity and say, how do we communicate complexity to those who certainly wouldn't understand the complexity in a technical sense? We are not even addressing the complexity in a technical sense in small circles of people devoted their life to data and whatsoever. But one thing is, one management principle also would be, if you have complexity and you are not used to it, look around for people who lived a lot of years with solving complexity. And I'm talking about the people, for instance, in environmental information, in geoinformation. Geoinformation, do people say, oh no, we have all these location-based services in the mobile phone or so, it's easy. No, it's not easy, it's rather complex. And it took, let's say, I lived it up, you see, in the geoinformation field, it took about 25 years from web services development to that orchestration of web services for applications we have here. But these people and the environmental people look for the environmental offices, look for the European Environmental Agency, the special agency for environment installed, and so on. We do not talk too much about the possibilities of management thought in how to solve this, because we don't need only the data, we also need the organization of the whole thing. We need the educated colleagues in that thing. Where do we want, with that innovation in information processing, needed in 5 years, maybe it would take another 10 years, what kind of human resources in all levels would we need? These are things that have to be solved first, and then don't be afraid about complexity. Our colleagues from the environment and geoinformation, they lifted it up. And in health, we have a European e-health directive. These people are also going strong in that direction. We have data spaces, European common data spaces that are much larger than we ever talked here in our circles. I just say, please, we have, maybe it's not a project, maybe it's rather a program, but we have to do something in a direction that we're not just telling stories about our complexity, but to solve it because the others help us how to do, and they did it before.
Thank you. Does anybody on the panel want to comment? If not, the lady there had a question, and then I'll come to the table in the front. And I think, okay.
Thank you. I have a question on the ecological impact of your research. I think we ask a lot from citizens, and as a policymaker, we are a lot aware that, we are asking a lot from citizens to lower their impact on biodiversity and how to fight the climate change. We've heard about satellites, we've heard about, I'm not saying we don't need them, but I'm saying, as any research, are you aware of, what it is? Because clearly, risk is increasing with climate change. So we're dealing with a double, challenge. And I would like to know, what is that an issue for you? And if so, what are you doing so that your print on climate is lessened? Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to comment on that. I acknowledge that very much. I see that also as an increasing unrest in the type of work that you're doing. So that my organization focused on capacity building in the global south. So global south, it means you have to travel a lot, and people travel towards you, and so. In the past, we didn't worry about that at all, but now it becomes more and more important, say, and also as a person that you feel that this should be an important issue also in the way you set up the research. But still, I mean, we are here not online, right? We are together. In the COP28, there's 70,000 people that all went there by plane. They're solving the climate problem, but on the other hand, you would say, should that need so much CO2 emissions? It's something we really have to become aware and say implement also in the things we do. And that also means that sometimes we have to make things second, not as good as they could be. And perhaps also it's relating to who you are. I would imagine if we have young researchers, they need to build up their networks. For them, it's very important to meet. I guess old guys, they know it, they have already their networks. I have, for example, a colleague, I won't mention the name, but she decided not to fly anymore in the rest of her career. But then she just won a very large research grant, so maybe there's not so much need for that. Yeah,
yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, we also acknowledge this in our project. We are not also flying a lot these days after COVID. So, yeah, this is something would require other type of collaboration. So, in order to better address this, yeah.
If I may add to that, I mean, this is a right question, and we are coping with that, as is mentioned, and colleagues, individually at the institutional level and so on. But I wanted to highlight that also the European Research and Innovation Framework is dealing with that. So when you apply for research innovation, you really need to show what you do in order to keep the carbon footprint low and comply with the taxonomy, sustainable taxonomy of the do not harm to other areas. Research is increasingly put on spot in reducing the carbon footprint and making its contribution to the sustainability.
So, gentleman at the front, and then finally there was a gentleman at the back. So, and those will be the last two contributions, please.
Stand or sit?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate the panelists and the commentators for their insightful remarks. Just two words, one pertaining the involvement of stakeholders and the political sector, also from the start. So from what we've been seeing in Institute Press, we designed the project from the start, from day one of the proposal, not something made by us from academic side and then trying to convince stakeholders, but I agree that it happened with us, by having the local stakeholders, the local authorities, the people on the field that actually feel what is happening. From day one in co-designing the proposal, we never had the issue of having to think whether it would be impactful, how it would make our technologies and our science and our academics be relevant, because the problems of the project were co-designed by the stakeholders themselves, and us included. So from academia to industry, companies, very important, to also the stakeholders in the field, including on the political sector. So usually in academia, so from my academic life, I've seen many colleagues demonizing the politics and the politicians demonizing science. So by working together with them, with politicians, with elected officials from local to regional and national levels, we have been able to better understand them, going to dinner with them, going to lunch with them and understanding their concerns, the issues of the electorate. But the important point that I would like to make, and I'd like to hear your opinion, is in the science itself, how we design our methods. And I'm a complex system scientist myself. I didn't use the word complexity in my presentation. Why? Because it scares people away. Of course, we know if things are complex, but the stakeholder, the farmer, the citizen does not need to know about all the complexities. They need to know how it matters in their lives, whether they will be able to pick the kids from school, whether they will be able to have clean water, whether they will be able to live their lives. So complexity is something that it belongs to us, to the projects, to the science that we do under the hood. But the tools, the methods, the services that we provide to the community they have to be in a way, and they are, and so far in a way, that complexity is under the hood, but you don't need to understand the complexity of the car. You need to appreciate the beauty, the simplicity, and the value of having a clear set of the space of solutions that you have. It's a very broad, complex set of solutions. It depends on many things, but the importance is to us not focusing too much on scaring people away with all the challenges. We are aware of the challenges, we work on the challenges for many, many years, but in addressing complexity ourselves under the hoods in a way that is not pass on that fear to the people and the uncertainties, the uncertainty of the uncertainty. There are many uncertainties, including on things that we don't even know that they exist. But that requires, first, having the stakeholders from day one with us so that they keep our feet on the floor. Because as a complex system scientist, my chair is on complex system science. I would scare people away with all the informatics and the mathematics and the physics. But one thing I learned is as follows. It's not just about the environmental aspect and the informatics and geodesy and geophysics and computer science. It's about the people, socio-environmental complexity. That is the future. Where in our math and in our physics, we need to have the modesty, not to be the ones, we are geniuses and we give our tools. No, we have to listen to the people, to the farmer, to the citizen, to the politician, because they have ideas on how we shape our complex system science. So in situ impress, to conclude, we have the human agent-based models, where you have humans, you have decisions, you have their minds as well, not just the computers, not just the data. It's about us humans. And I would like to know in detail in other projects, because we are all very similar, I would like to know what your thoughts are into this incorporation of the difficult relationship between socio-environmental complexity, and how do you do it in practice to bring it across and to provide the manifold solutions without scaring the people, without passing on the engine complexity to the people. How do you do it? How do you assess and work with the complexity in a way that the people on the fields don't feel it, but just feel the positive impact?
Thank you.
Okay.
I will ask you if you can give a short answer to that, because there is one gentleman that did want to come in and still does. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, sir. It's.
I'm Javier Larraneta, Secretary General of the Spanish Technology Platform on Industrial Safety and Security. So I'm talking more from the perspective of the critical infrastructure operators, owners, and not only from this disaster risk management. Well, congratulations for the projects and the consortiums. When you are talking about the community, the DRS community, usually I can see researchers, sometimes first responders on civil protection and emergency agencies, a few municipalities, but usually not. You are not including relevant stakeholders like the critical infrastructure operators and owners, private or public. So I'm talking about transport infrastructures, industrial infrastructures, ITC infrastructures, urban infrastructures, and other essential services for society that are directly affected to the disaster. When studying the systemic risk, most of the projects focus on the sources of threats, the origin of risks, and their direct affection to the general infrastructures and society. But you are not covering in depth an overall or complete affection as the cascading or domino effects that are usually analyzed in a very soft way. And from our perspective, from the critical infrastructure operators' perspective, the risk assessment that we produce in terms of safety, security, environmental and climate change affection, and the business continuity and resilience policies and plans is not fully integrated, nor covering in depth the dependencies of the internal critical elements or the dependencies for external other critical infrastructure and those external systemic risks that you are studying. And those are the internal, what produce additional affection to society. So in my opinion, the next big challenge for the future DRS projects is to integrate both perspectives, the disaster risk management and the critical infrastructure resilience. Do you agree with me?
So I'm going to have to say thank you for the two questions. They are really important issues, and I could debate them with you for a very long time, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. Can I suggest that the panel talk to the two gentlemen over lunch? Because those are both really important issues, because I also work with critical infrastructure, so I echo a lot of what you said. So could I ask you to thank all the panel, and please the questions from the floor. Thank you very much.
We should add the panel and the moderator and the questions. Very good. Buenos días, Rafael. There is an event that is dedicated for critical infrastructures, and that's where most of the critical infrastructures, that destination, is complementing the work of DRS. So that's maybe a reason that we don't have a lot of critical infrastructures in this day. So I would like to invite to our last session, that is called International Resource Center Initiatives with the IRDREM Society. And we have Ronald Nussbaugh, who will guide us in this, the last part of our trip. Ronald? And while he's coming here, I would just like to share some things that I have learned, and maybe, is Ronald coming too? Yeah, okay. I will do a debriefing after lunch so we can keep the time. So Ronald, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm quite stimulated by all the debates just before, because I represent one of I say I'm also from the stakeholders part. And in fact, my presentation will, too far. Yes, it was intended to be presented by 4 persons, and ultimately I am the one who represents the group. One other is just Cis, who just spoke before, and the 2 others are unavailable today. So it's not a project, it's an initiative, in fact, an initiative by civil society organizations, namely French Association for Disaster Risk Reduction. City of Tours indirectly is member through the River Loire Basin Floodplain Management, and so many others. So but my object is not to present this association, neither to present the partner, who is in fact an international organization from which maybe you are members, iDream Society. And so we took this initiative at the time of the last midterm review of Sendai Framework for Action. You know, it was last spring in May. I don't speak about the carbon balance of the story, but at that time the government representatives gave their evaluation of what was done in half time of this international arrangement, and we thought we had the opportunity, in parallel to these official presentations, to discuss with the officials of UNDRR and also of some EU Commission officials about the opportunity to try to do something kind of very close to what has been expressed just before, meaning that to consider perhaps not project approach from needs expressed by someone, part of the end users or the stakeholder categories, but to try to find, because there is availability of what has been done so far. This is the aim of a midterm review, what has been done for the use of these end users. What can they find when they go along on the internet, and what can help them to make risk-informed decision-making, because this is one of the objectives of which was discussed. Risk-informed decision-making by more or less everyone at each level. So my point I will go fast because we have a shortage of time, but I may perhaps very briefly express more what we consider as a disaster risk reduction resources center, and some examples perhaps to clarify, but there are many other, and not about the association, but maybe some more about this initiative, which is at the very beginnings, and conclusions and next steps for that. So the presentation in text is derived from what was found in a kind of fact-finding on the web and through nearly 30 different such categories of resource centers available on the net, and we can see that there are newcomers definitely coming from these projects, and one of them is presented in this very short presentation of emblematic disaster risk reduction resource centers. There are two from the international level, of course, United Nations and the European Commission, and two from different, more users-oriented, the Paratus project, which has been presented, and the one I am more familiar with is an experience which we developed involving a kind of public-private partnership arrangement, and the end users, which were in fact moderated by the association I am represented here. And this leads to something very pragmatic, not solving all the questions, but at least solving a French legal requirement, which is to inform each at each purchase of a real estate, a flat or a house, about the risk situation. The risk situation, which is produced by state, we can discuss, and can be many scientific comments on it, of course, but it's at least something, a tool, which is required from the citizens, and there is an additional information, which is a loss record on this real estate for the 10 last years, which is not much, of course, but it's more than nothing. So just to illustrate something very concrete, of course, it doesn't solve all the needs of the end users, and even the end users perhaps don't want, especially didn't want to express this kind of need, although we may discuss, and I think we had a starting of a discussion on this type of issue, and definitely being myself from my career, a project engineer from a long time, I think we have here to consider the situation which was expressed, the fact that the society may require now support of science to assess what's available. Is it worse? And to express the further needs, and perhaps not always to propose a complete solution, but at least to look what is on board and what can we do from that, and what maybe international cooperation can help in order to bridge the needs. So this is perhaps very long. I don't elaborate on the associations, and I will go very fast through the three last slides, which are trying to give a very quick
presentation about the three questions, of course. What is it, why, and how. So it's the what express very modest approach, which is a kind of network, informal network, to develop a webinar series about these different experiences to be discussed within an appropriate panel. And for sure, we did not yet do the scientific work to categorize and to clarify the way this can be done in a more structured way. But definitely the idea is to involve, to confront more or less the developers on one side and the different end user categories, depending to what the tool is about. And the why, I already mentioned it, I shall not go into detail. It refers to the two decisions of the midterm review at the United Nations building in New York, which are quite close to what we talk about. So we are not thinking about a dream, it's something which seems to be expected by the member states and the interface science society. And so I think we are close to the end. The how is, of course, we have a proposal, and we are now in campaign to find members of this development in a kind of informal steering committee together with the associations, the webinars which will be held according to the demand of such presentations by those who have already who are in charge of one of them. And the audience can be raised initially by the association's membership, but it's of course totally open if there is a success in the proposal. And later on, of course, there might be a lot of material available and a lot of opportunities to develop more classical scientific approaches, including the scientific ones. And so that's what is summarized in the last slide. I suppose you will receive them, and you will receive as well two additional slides about the associations who thank you for your audience and listening.
Yeah, thank you, Roland, for this good overview of things that would be needed. The question is also a little bit of complexity, because there are so many solutions, and I compare to the questions that, in my observation, when I look into German discussions in let's say national discussions on disaster risk practice and experience, that is more or less nicely shared. For me, I notice that results from the neighbor countries are not quoted too much when they're working on the national side. Also, everyone knows nothing can be transposed one-to-one, but the similarities, part of the solution, this is what also Roland proposes, that we have cross-border exchange, not only national exchange in the whole thing. So we have a many years of deficit of communication in Europe, not only in bilateral transborder, but also in Europe. We have a database of the CERIS projects, but we don't have the solution, a database or information system, I better say, for these practice-oriented things. There will be something we would have to agree on multinational or European structural way with the private companies, with the non-government organizations, and this is why I think it's a very good idea to go in that direction. But the problem as such is an old one, and we should see how strategically address it, because it would be, for instance, the administrations that would have to work together to share this. Not only they are driven by administrations because they have the solutions, and not only by private enterprises. Thank you.
Can I maybe complement what has just been said about the need to cooperate in a way, because we have all the cards on the table. You mentioned what IDRIMI is doing. We have CERIS work around research. We have the Union Civil Protection Mechanism from policies, the Sendai Framework for Action at international level with the ESTAG, the European Science and Technology Advisory Group. There are some associations called IFA-FRI, which is International Forum to Advance First Responder Innovation. We have many different activities, but we do not have any mechanism which ensures that these different entities are speaking to each other and working together. And in a period where we are facing disasters on a regular basis, if we are not able to work together from the top to the bottom and bottom up to the top, we will continue to face, in fact, these difficulties like we experienced, for example, in July 2021 with flash floods in Germany, Luxembourg, and Belgium, where research projects one day before alerted on the risk related to the vulnerability, the risk of disasters, but the response was, hey, we don't expect EU research to tell us that it's raining in Belgium, and that it led to more than 150 casualties. We have a problem of governance. So my question to you, Roland, is can you imagine that we are finally putting all the cards on the table, like a puzzle game? What are the pieces of the puzzle? And figure out how to build a puzzle which will work at the end of the day, and that we stop to have sharper thinking. Everyone in this silo thinking for its own, and say we will work for the good of society and ensure that our forces are complementing and built in synergies. Because this is my fight since many years, and I don't see things progressing very much. And you have the capacity also regarding the Sendai Framework for Action to liaise with regional platforms, UN, the disaster reduction regional platform, that are linking themselves to their national ministries, but not working actually together regarding the Sendai implementation. How come is it possible, this? How come is it possible that we cannot establish relay to disseminate information from research to these regional entities because there are not sufficient links at ministerial and EU level? For me, this is absolutely non-understandable. So I would like to propose you, actually, and we will be discussing that in 2024, that before I escape to different fields of activity, in the next semesters, we try to consolidate things. I'm doing that internally. I'm discussing with DG ECHO, and I will have tomorrow, I will escape from this meeting, a meeting with UN, the ESTAG, to try to, at policy level, to strengthen this kind of coordination mechanism. Now we have clustering of projects from Horizon Europe via CERIS. You have this very strong networking which is in place. Let's play it, I would say, in a good way, cleverly, so that we make a difference in the next years to come. Thank you.
Merci, Philippe. I did not go through all the elements, but what we are conscious that we are
in the process of having a dream, but it's natural with an association called I Dream. Sorry for the joke, but it's a nice one. And no more than that, we tested the feasibility among ourselves, and we consider that we, along what Philippe you offered to do, and thank you for trying this like that. We know that it's quite difficult, and we face, I would say, the climato-sceptic situation of who may drive such a thing, and for sure, perhaps civil society seems to be not the optimal one, but definitely there are projects already on the table. The Paratus project, for instance, is an example. If we can show some results and the information platform and things like that, which are oriented towards this, it's a way of starting. And this is the idea we had with Funda Atoun, the colleague of CIS. And from the French side, I mentioned you the case. Of course, it's a governmental case, but under governmental legal constraints. But nevertheless, it has produced some elements, not only for the end user, which is what I summarized very briefly about legal information on the risk exposure, etc., but also information in terms of indicators of loss at the municipality grid, which is quite a small grid in France, considering the large amount of municipalities. So you have different end users. And so we don't want to make an exhibition. We think it's time for the stakeholders with the support to some extent of scientists to look at what's on the table, what is already there, and what of course there is now science in addition to fill the gaps to some extent. But this is, and of course, it's also an approach of helping the users to understand what it is about, not only communication, but education of the use of this kind of tool, that this can bring some reasons of raison d'être for the association of civil society, for them to help the end users to use it. But we shall see. Of course, it will start and take some time. Thank you for your audience.
Let's make the dream become reality.
So thank you, everyone, and we would like to start sharp. That's time for the lunch, well-deserved lunch, and hope that we have a lot of discussions, things that we wouldn't have time to discuss now, that you can start with all these ideas, and we start sharp at 1:30. Thank you.